Hello, everyone. We'll just wait till a few more have joined and hope you enjoyed the earlier session. This room, so breakout room 1, is about the new approach to supply diversity and how companies across the UK and Europe are giving supply diversity a new approach. So I think we just had to give David he had to quickly run from one room to another. So we're just giving him that little break.
I am here. Apologies, I forgot to put my video on. So
no, it's not a problem, David. Hope the other session went well, and now obviously pass it over to yourself to lead this breakout room, and obviously leave you in your capable hands. And thank you for all your support, everyone, and hope you enjoy the session. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Ricky. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the session. So what we want to do here is have another panel discussion, thinking about this theme as we've outlined it of thinking differently. So perhaps challenging some of the established approaches to supply diversity and seeing how we can perhaps think differently and take them forward in a more cohesive way. I've got a great panel today that I'm going to engage with, and hopefully what we can do in this session as well. I can see there's 25 of us together here, so it's a nice sized group. Hopefully what we can do is perhaps encourage some questions from the audience as well. So I believe we have the chat function open. I will do my best to toggle into chat and manage the technology, but I'll also open up some time later in the discussion to entertain any of those questions directly if you have one. So if you have Zoom capabilities, which I'm sure we all do after 18 months of lockdown, put your hand up perhaps, and hopefully I'll be able to see that, and I'll call on you for your question if you have one. Okay, so our panel today, let me just point you towards them and perhaps ask them to introduce themselves. So firstly, Alexandra Tarmo from Unilever. Alexandra, could you introduce yourself to the group, please?
Yeah, so good afternoon, good morning all. So I'm Alex Tarmo. I lead partnership and social procurement at Unilever. I'm based in Zurich in Switzerland. And with that, I also lead our supplier diversity commitment.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alex, and welcome. Andrew is next up. So Andrew from Sony Entertainment. Andrew Edgeley, can you say hi, please?
I will do. Hello, David. Hello, everyone. So my name is Andrew Edgeley. My pronouns are he, his, him. I'm the interim director of Supplier Diversity, Sustainability and Ethics at Sony Pictures. I'm also responsible for the corporate services category. So I have diversity responsibility and traditional sourcing responsibility as well. So welcome, everyone.
Great, thanks, Andrew. And then over to our friend Florence at Fidelity. Florence, could you say hi as well, please?
Hi, David. Hi, everyone. I'm Florence Arsimoles. I'm the head of procurement transformation, supply chain risk and sustainability at Fidelity International, an asset management company. I'm based in Luxembourg.
Fantastic, thank you. And last but absolutely not least, from Diageo, we have Manuela. Manuela, can you say hi, please?
Hi, David, and
hello.
Hi, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here. My name is Manuela Gómez, and I'm Global Supply Diversity Director for Diageo. And yeah, happy to be here. Welcome, everyone.
Wonderful. Thanks, guys. So let's get started and perhaps stay with you, Manuela, if we can. And again, thinking about this theme today of the engagement and the approach to supplier diversity, perhaps how we can engage and think differently about that approach. What would be some of the things that you would call out perhaps for you at Diageo in terms of how you're engaging internally first with your stakeholders and perhaps how that's evolving or changing as you go forward?
Thank you, David. I think let me start with a little bit of context on where we are at Diageo. We have a clear commitment to really create the most inclusive and sustainable world within our company. So I think it's really core to our purpose, and it's part of our must-dos to deliver our performance ambition. So absolutely embedded. And we really champion inclusion and diversity across the entire business. So within our employees, with our brands, in the communities where we operate. So in reality, it's absolutely embedded. So within this environment, when we start talking about supply diversity, and we had our story in North America for 6 years, but we launched globally recently. In reality, we were able to tap into a moment that was already happening in the business. So really speaking with our stakeholders, there was no doubt that through supply diversity, we can really make a societal impact and really support the inclusive economic inclusion of underrepresented suppliers. So we were clear on that, and all our stakeholders were clear. We all share the same purpose when speaking with them. This really gave us exponential power to create impact that we wanted. And also, this was not a standalone project. It was part of our overarching sustainability ambition. So in that context, in reality, we got absolute support from our stakeholders, but the main challenge from them was the how. So, okay, tell me, how are we going to do this? Mm-hmm. Tell me where we are today. And we need to answer all those questions. We need to assess our readiness for an inclusive supply chain. And we wanted our stakeholders to really have the reasons to believe and the excitement to really drive this ambition together. So we did something that we call 6 tasks in 6 months. So a very quick turnaround to really respond our stakeholders. And those 6 tasks were the first one, defined our value chain inclusion and diversity strategy and framework. And we had 2 pillars. One was supply diversity as such, and the other one was the diverse representation of our suppliers' workforce. So how we can collaborate with them to evolve that even further. Yeah. The second activity was establish our baseline, so where we are, and we gave all that to our stakeholders. The third one was define the minority communities that we wanted to really impact. And that was completely different by region. So if you go to North America, completely different to if you go to Europe or Africa. And that was something that we did together with our stakeholders. And then, of course, created a dashboard to track our KPIs. If you don't measure, it doesn't exist. So that was important for us. We communicated that externally. So we said we need to really make a public commitment on what we tried to do here. And we wanted to double our spend with diverse supplies by 2025. So that was clear. And we made that public statement. And finally, we set goals for everyone. So it's not something that we're going to do without targets. So everybody has targets for 2025. So I think that was our actionable strategy for long-term progress and opens really the possibilities for our stakeholders.
And it feels like quite a collaborative engagement strategy then. Would that be fair?
That definitely. Their excitement from the stakeholders were there. They just needed support on the how.
Has it changed, do you think, sorry, just to build on the question, but has it changed? So obviously, you know, procurement, people tend to think about how do I engage internally with my stakeholders? Has it changed how they think about how they should or can engage with you? Is it a two-way street, do you think?
Definitely. I think so the purpose was there. So nobody really questioned the purpose of the program on inclusive and diversity. It was more around, okay, help me on how we will do it. So yeah, definitely. I'm really being requested and the rest of the champions on support on how we will do that together. And it's absolutely collaborative.
Yeah, wonderful. And one of the things we see with a lot of our clients and a lot of the work we do is, of course, you know, the adage is true. You can't be aligned externally unless you're aligned internally. So that getting that alignment right internal before, in some ways, before you even think about what does that engagement then look like externally, I think is a crucial thing to do. Wonderful, great. Thanks for starting us off there, Manuela. Alex, could I turn to you perhaps and think about, or ask you how you're engaging with that tier 1 cohort with advocacy groups, WeConnect, MSD UK, etc., as well as other external stakeholders. So interesting to hear from Manuela something about the internal side. How does that external engagement look for you?
No, thanks, David. And yeah, I fully agree. I mean, the internal piece is a very similar space. We were in a space where I think the whole business from our CEO was absolutely on board, and it all started with an external commitment that we made back in January that we will be spending €2 billion with, underrepresented group by 2025. So I think this commitment was, of course, signed off by everyone from the top. And I fully agree that you cannot really do that until having the stakeholder. Also, because as we moved about, okay, how are we going now to connect with our partners and our suppliers? In many cases, specifically on what we call indirect procurement, the supplier are never really owned only by procurement. So it's very difficult to reach out to your supplier base if you don't have internal alignment.
Yeah.
So what we did, couple of things before we even announced our commitment, and as I was designing the commitment last year of the team, and probably brilliant that is also with me leading partnership, we had several conversations with selected group of strategic partners. So we did some consultation to learn, because honestly, we are quite humble. We're not the first one to come with such a commitment. And hence we wanted to learn from them and get them on board even before we publicly commit. The same journey we did with organizations. I mean, Mayank and MSD UK have been very instrumental into our thinking on how to design, where to go, what to do. The same happened with WeConnect International and also the EGLCC, because we really wanted to tackle all underrepresented groups. So, and at the same time, I think I spent my life in procurement, but in the last 18 months, I never talked as much to all my peers from competition to supply in the procurement work that I did in all my life. And despite being, virtually, thanks to be virtual, it's been so easy. So we even co-built, I mean, Manuela and I have been discussing, because we came more at the same time. So we did that. After the launch of the commitment, when it became public, we also launched at the same time our renewed partnership program, which is called Partner with Purpose, which is very aligned to the purpose of the company, which is, again, very similar to Diageo. It's about, make sustainable living commonplace. So as we launched the Partner with Purpose program, which was intended to all our supplier partners, but specifically to our core strategic one, we always said that the objective of the program was to, of course, drive mutual growth, but also at the same time doing good for people, planet, and people. So we already infused that idea that it was coming. What happened very concretely last week, we had our media connect. So we connect twice per year with our key core partners. And last week was a great moment for me, because we launched officially what we call our partner promise, asking our partners to officially join us into the Supplier Diversity journey. And this has been something that was not launched by me or even by my CPO, but it was launched by our CSO with the board being on the event.
Yeah.
So far, we have 56 of them that have joined us. So our tier 1, as some of you would call them, have already said, I'm joining you. And I think now we just have the avenue to drive it with our tier 1.
Wonderful, thank you. Can I just build on that thought about partnering with purpose, perhaps? And if you've signed up, more than 50 of those already, it sounds like they've kind of committed to you that they'll join you in that journey. Are they doing that? This isn't a loaded question. Are they doing that because that helps them get closer to your organization? Or do they see also the tangible benefits for themselves as organizations working with other companies and with other clients, as well as thinking about their own customer base, perhaps?
No, it's a very good question. Look, and I think it's a mixed bag. First, some of them have joined because we are so much more advanced than we are. Let me be very humble as well. So I think some of them are joining, and I think we will just go back and say, okay, tell me to accelerate my own journey. I mean, Accenture is probably the best example. Some, I think, are joining because they are less advanced, less mature. And we're asking them, very similar to Diageo, to join us in driving their own supplier diversity, but also their own representation. So I think some are joining because they are less mature and they want to learn and see that it's the right thing to do. and also because maybe, yes, there is a purpose or branding they can build using our purpose or joining our purpose. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
So that would be, you know, a value added for some, and in the middle, probably all of them are firmly believing that there is a competitive advantage. I mean, you know, brand with purpose grow faster. We have demonstrated that. So I think there's just a business case. At the end of the day, we all do it because there is a business case.
Yeah, wonderful. Great. Thanks, Alex. If I can, Andrew, I'd turn to you with the next question and ask you, you know, we talk a lot about supply diversity. We talk a lot about what needs to change, what needs to happen for us to engage with diverse suppliers. We have conferences, we join organizations like MSD UK. What material things do you see happening in your organization to really include opportunities that are genuinely achievable for diverse suppliers? And how are you encouraging that engagement and hopefully showing the deliverable of that engagement in terms of real business opportunities?
No, thank you, David. I think for us, you know, when we on the early days, it was all about managing expectations, and that is both internally and particularly externally. And what I realized and the team realized is that really we do need to have our internal house in order and set up to get the most out of those supply chains, those relationships, and those opportunities. So I think the first thing to do really is to get the sign up and says we are open for business, but making sure there's food on the shelves. You know, I think that's so important. So being vocal about, you know, having that inclusive procurement strategy. You know, again, encouraging all of colleagues that, you know, every option, you know, everyone should be involved in every option, create that level playing field. But I think, you know, wonderful comments, Manuela. A huge knowledge base isn't just the advocacy groups, it's peers as well. I've learned so much in this space. But of course, you know, as you said, at some point you have to roll your sleeves up and really get stuck in. So there's a couple of hints and tips, and there's a couple of new things that I've been thinking about that may work, it may not, but it might just give a few ideas. So I think for us, really, we invested in a formal registration process. So you probably know, as if there's wonderful buyers listening into us, we get so many cold calls. What do you do with them? Because you need to manage those expectations. So we have a registration process that we say to diverse and non-diverse suppliers, please go and register with us. You know, and they put their details on there. So whenever we then have a requirement that comes into us, we have a first point of contact. We go into our database and we look, have we got a particular, you know, diverse supplier, non-diverse supplier in the mix in this particular area for this particular goods and service. The second part of that, if we draw a blank, and to be honest with you, we have about 1,500 diverse suppliers on the database, is that we then revert to, you know, wonderful organizations, you know, MSD UK and We International, to see if there's any support that we can give there. And thirdly, of course, we reach out to peers and we ask them their thoughts and ideas if they can help us, if they've come across a particular supplier. So for us, again, it's quite an efficient way of managing that piece of internal and external communication to make sure it's all, you know, done in a professional and controlled way. And of course, we also, you know, like to ensure that every single bid that we do have at least one diverse supplier involved in that process. So, you know, that's so important to get everybody. And also, you know, what I'd say again to colleagues who are listening in, you know, budgets are always a challenge, but please invest, you know, in someone, you know, who can, as part of a job like me, I started as like part-time, hopefully one day I'll become full-time in Europe, but there you go, hopefully no bosses are listening. But, you know, it's really about, you know, having somebody there that the business can then go to because our stakeholders and buying decision makers have got a million things to worry about. You know, they haven't got the time to have to go and source diverse suppliers. So, you know, step up and say, yes, you know, come to us, we will find it, we will provide that we will find that pain point and we will take that away. I think that's so important, David, as well. Yeah. And finally, I was going to say, and finally, really to have, you know, a project management system, because as wonderful colleague Manuela mentioned, you've got to measure everything. Oh, and it's so painful, colleagues, believe me. But you know, it will be small steps, you know, but you will make it. So you need, we have a system where we manage our projects, but in there we have two fields. You know, have you invited, you know, a diverse supplier? Yes, no. You know, was that diverse supplier awarded that contract? A couple of simple measures. You know, it's like planting a seed. From that, it will grow and grow and grow. So about thinking differently, David, this is something I've been experimenting with my other job in the last 6 months. Now, a big challenge that we all have, particularly on the, for diverse suppliers, is, as you know, corporations, we are so difficult and challenging to work with. It's awful. I would be, daunted. Where do you start? You've got, payment terms. They want me to wait how many months to get paid? High levels of insurance, $25 million worth of cyber insurance for a stationary provider in Spain is quite a big ask. So, I've been working with our chief diversity officer, and we've done a bit of an experiment in the US, which we managed to get through. So what we've done really is we found a large diverse supplier who was willing to really act as, if you like, I don't want to, as the owner of that relationship. So when we introduce smaller business, the main large diverse supplier has signed up to the Sony framework, has signed up and gone through the information security checks, data privacy checks, insurance checks, all those boxes are ticked. So, and what we've done there is then when the smaller diverse businesses come in, they're engaged from us via this third party. They can pay them quicker. They can sort of, they can get on the books quicker as well. And we've had quite a bit of success over that in the US. So something I'm going to start bringing in the UK now is that exact model. Now, sometimes, as we all know in the world of diversity, things don't travel particularly well across the Atlantic. We're all very different. We've got legislation. So for those, in terms of stepping up and doing something differently, I'm going to try and overcome some of those barriers that small businesses, and diverse businesses have by using like a main go-to vendor that will manage, their relationship, will place the orders through this main company, and then it will be filtered out, and we'll see how that goes. I'll keep you all posted on that.
I think it's really interesting because to hear you speak at the start there, I was thinking, that's great to hear about the processes and what you're trying to do and the inclusive nature of how you're trying to reach out. But if I'm a small supplier, diverse or otherwise, actually, you feel like a scary organization to me. So, my lens of you looking up at Sony Entertainment would be scary as, right? So that's interesting now that you recognize that and see a way to perhaps get beyond that, beyond you looking like an unscalable mountain, I guess.
I think so, David. We've all learned the hard way because we flex internal processes to make it work. And it is really challenging. So my sort of a different approach is to, okay, let's the third party help us manage that process. The third party take that risk to sign off those insurance levels. And then, we give it a go and it works. It was signed off by all of our decision makers in the US, and that's coming to these shores very soon to have. And also in terms of a tender process, when we all go through these awful procurement processes, we have these wonderful balanced scorecards. Did they sign up to our master service agreement? Yes or no? But if we've got a vehicle that we can say, well, actually, if they go through this, they will be meeting all of the insurance levels, the data privacy riders, information security. I think it's just going to help create that balance that we need to have a business that represents, all the communities that we want to be part of. That's my thoughts.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Andrew. Florence, if I can go to you, perhaps build on this thinking about meaningful engagement. How do we turn rhetoric and goodwill actually into meaningful engagement? What are some of your experiences for you guys at Fidelity?
Yeah, that's a great question, David. Thank you. I think the word meaningful is really key here. In a supply diversity program, like in any other program, it's important we have tangible results. The engagement with advocacy organization, this conference now, the networking with peers, the changes, to Andrew's point, to our policies, systems, processes, the regular communication. I know that Manuela is having a lot of internal interventions in forums, etc. Everything we do have only two goals, really. It's onboarding more and more diverse suppliers and having a fruitful collaboration with them. So we want to track very early on the engagement we have with ethnic businesses and all other diverse suppliers. We have created a file where we capture a number of data points on the diverse suppliers we have engaged with to help us understanding where we are in the relationship. So the management team of our sourcing department have access to this file, and they are checking progress with their reports. Why? Because we have included diversity-related objectives in their 2021 performance goals. So it means that on top of ensuring our spend is appropriately managed, they also have to ensure the firm meets its sustainability goals. Then at the point of tendering, we've asked our sourcing staff to record whether they have included a diverse supplier in the tender. And if they have not, they must explain the reason why. So it's important to understand, again, to Andrew's point, it's important to understand and reflect on the hurdles that diverse suppliers are facing when taking part in a competitive event. We'll then work on perhaps removing those hurdles. Sometimes we can't because we're a financial institution, so we are highly regulated. That's the challenge we are facing in our industry. Or we make sure that we support, we develop, we train the diverse suppliers before they are invited to make sure that they can go smoothly through the process. I think there are two very important factors we take into account when we select suppliers at Fidelity International: sustainability and innovation. So on the sustainability front, our supply diversity, and I think Manuela, you talked about this as well in your company, our supply diversity program is part of a wider responsible supply chain program, which is also part of a wider corporate sustainability approach. And it means that we'll be looking at all aspects of the supplier offer, including environment, ethics, human rights, their own supply chain. So let me give you an example of what it could mean for an ethnic minority business watching this panel. We met with one of them a few weeks ago, and we figured out that they are manufacturing their products in China. At the moment, our current provider, not a diverse one, has production units in the UK. So actually, we discarded that supplier on the basis that we want to favor carbon footprint over the diversity aspect. Right. So our supply diversity program is not just a tick box exercise, and we won't just look at the numbers. We want to do the good thing for the planet as well, and the people. Yeah. For innovation, so we tried also something like Andrew, something a bit different. So we are absolutely convinced that diverse suppliers can be a great source of innovation we want to harness. So, and if you think about how we created the COVID-19 vaccines, I mean, each and every successful pharmaceutical, and David, I know you worked in that industry. I mean, they all partnered with startups, and without that partnership, they really struggle. So we are very conscious that getting, again, to Andrew's point, getting on the supply chain of financial institution is like an assault course in a way. So we have signed up to a FinTech pledge. So that's an initiative supported by Her Majesty Treasury and Tech Nation. We have created a dedicated landing page advertised on our booth, where we commit to providing clear guidance on how the onboarding process at Fidelity works. Their progress through this process, we provide a named contact, guidance, feedback, and encourage good practice and improvement. We also have set up a sandbox to run proof of concepts quickly and in a safe way for both parties. Because I think that's important. We create, where we can, an environment that benefits to both the big corporation and the diverse suppliers. We are looking for relationships of mutual benefit. For some biases, that makes sense. I think back to Alexandra's point, it's how can we adapt and collaborate, really collaborate with the ethnic minority businesses and any diverse supplier.
Wonderful, thank you. Perhaps I can switch to Manuela and build on some of that thinking as we maybe think about definitions of success. And I think we heard earlier in the CPO panel, you know, as an organization, as a function, we're migrating away from some of those more traditional savings-based type measurements has been the only way that you can see value. As we shift into thinking about sustainability, social impact, and diversity and inclusion, what are some of the things that you're thinking about or that you're actually doing that help define and then measure success?
So again, David, going back to our internal readiness to really drive this ambition, diversifying our supply base is not a one-time exercise, so it needs to be embedded in and sustained over time and embedded in the culture of everyone, not only procurement, but everyone that buys on behalf of Diageo. So that cultural change, we're really doing it through training. And that we created something called the Diageo way of inclusive sourcing. And they're really, it's not changing our processes, it's pretty much bringing a diversity thought into our overall process. So when people are doing category strategy, when people are doing sourcing, when people are just looking for a supplier, diversity of thought should be part of their journey. So that's pretty much what we're doing. And if we finally get to a point that this is embedded in the organization, it will be definitely a success measure.
Okay, wonderful. Andrew, perhaps to you as well, thinking about definitions of success and ultimately how do you see if you're realizing those things, recognizing that it's not a static event, that it's a continuum over time. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, no, thank you, David, Manuela. I agree. I think, again, the devil's always going to be in the detail. I think it's just getting into the numbers and really getting into the numbers game and, you know, providing those committing. So what we've done is we've committed to our C-suite to update and publish quarterly dashboards. So we will mention the measurements. I mean, it's wonderful now that the organization is measured on its ability to support, you know, diversity, you know, inclusivity and all these, you know, and ethics, sustainability, and that flows from the top down. And every quarter, my OKRs, I have to report on what we're doing, and it flows through, which is a wonderful thing to do. But there is something I'd just like to share with the group as well. And it is so important. It's when you get a tiny little win, and it is difficult to get these little wins. Please, everyone, let's just celebrate those wins. I talk so much about my wins and case studies that, you know, you might lose a few on the way. And when I first went on this journey, we had some wonderful diverse companies, many of which are probably listening in now, and they got so far in the bid process and they just didn't get across the line, which is so frustrating. But when you do get them across the line and, you know, you get them involved in your business, you see their business growing, expanding, you know, they're doing well, they're doing other things, they're doing things with your competitors, they're supporting other productions. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. So I think keep positive, and believe me, sometimes in our wonderful world of supply diversity, it can be tricky, but reach out to your peers. They're great counselors as well as good for advice. So, you know, I think that, you know, use the network, but I think, yeah, celebrate those successes is my little thinking around, you know, those strategies to have.
Great. Love it, Andrew. Thank you very much. Alex, for you, defining success, measuring success, how do you know you're realizing your goals? What does that look like at Unilever?
Yeah, so look, of course, the ultimate goal is, you know, driving spend. But we're not driving spend to reach a spend. We're driving spend because by doing so, we are kind of forcing the system to look at different ways, different suppliers. I mean, I echo what was said. We're going two directions in parallel, and bear with me again. It's been 7 months, so we're quite into that. The first thing that we're really doing a lot is building programs such as Accelerator. Of course, there is the MSD UK one just going on now in the UK, and we're really trying to fund businesses which are innovative and ultimately will deliver against our sustainability and innovation agenda, very similar to Florence. So we're doing this accelerator where we are committing to put, of course, there is a commitment in money to create this accelerator program, but more importantly is the in-kind support we're providing it. And why I'm so keen in in-kind is because in in-kind, I put my procurement colleagues in front of SME. And then I think only when you are talking to them, you know, when you are meeting with them, and we had, you know, example about taking 6 months for an SME to be paid, or taking 2 months for a startup to set up a contract, and that's not right. But when you really start talking, you understand that, and I think the accelerator that intend to develop SME and diverse businesses, and I would say with or without us, because it's cycle. You can win a tender, you can lose a tender, but as long as you're here and you're known in the space, maybe I don't need them anymore. They're not winning anymore because they're not fitting my need anymore. Maybe by the time Manuela I've connect with them and Giorgio will import them. So for me, I'm very keen that the ultimate target we want to track, and we're still designing how, it's how the turnover of diverse businesses is moving over time. And again, ideally with or without us. So if I find a new startup tomorrow, which is for underrepresented group in the UK, I want to see where they stand in 5 years. And that for me is the ultimate goal we are trying to reach. But again, bear with me, it's 7 months we are in, it will take a bit more time, but this is where we want to go. A part of tracking the normal KPIs that I think we've been mentioning in the team.
Wonderful, thanks, Alex. Let me just, before we go to some questions from the audience, let me just ask one last question to each of you. We've heard a lot about all the things you're doing and the successes you're having, and how you're trying to think differently, whether that's on internal engagement, external engagement, thinking about success factors and measurement. What are some of the challenges, though, that are still prevalent in your experience that are stopping you from being even more successful when it comes to engaging and building those real relationships with diverse suppliers? Florence, perhaps we could start with you on that one.
Yeah, sure. I think because we are really at the start of the program, I'm presenting the program to a lot of forums and pretty senior ones. And what I'm facing is a lot of preconceptions about what a diverse supply is. So typically, they will be too small to be able to service us. They will be more expensive. They won't be able to go through our onboarding process. They will refuse to sign our lengthy contracts. Any reason why, really, any reason to justify that, well, that won't work for us. So now I'm well prepared for those preconceptions. I have an answer to each of them. I've built a small booklet with all those pushbacks and the answers to the pushbacks. So it's important that we understand those fears or the assumptions that people are making and have an answer. And I think the most important is to manage to get those guys to sit down with a diverse supplier, and then suddenly everything disappears.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because some of the preconceptions will be real and have some, some grounding in genuine concerns, like scale and things like that. Other things are more just perceptions, and actually we need to deal with those nearly on a more emotional level than actually on a realistic level. It's interesting. Thank you, Manuela. How does that look for you? Same question.
Yeah, so for us, in reality, is how do you align on a definition for supply diversity globally? So thinking outside of US, how we really get to a point where we have a definition by region, because every region is different. So in North America, they have been working on this from the 60s. So they have more than 300 certification agencies working on supply diversity. So it's much more mature than what we find in UK, in Africa, in Asia Pacific, or in Latin America. So really aligning on a definition that really includes everybody. It's the key challenge. And we've had with Alex and some others, we've had conversations around how we can work together to really drive that industry-wide, not just something that Diageo or Unilever or Fidelity can do in isolation.
Wonderful. Thank you. Andrew.
No, I think that's there's some great points here. And I would like to say that the expression pulling one's hair out certainly isn't relevant to myself, but it has certainly been us, David. But I think that, there's certain challenges that we've had. I think for me is around all, data privacy, GDPR, because all I'll say, the tip to that was given to me by a colleague a month ago. Get to know your data privacy lawyer, build a good relationship with them, and because it is difficult, friends. I know it is difficult, but it will pay off long term. I think of Sony, I'm really pleased to announce, got so fed up with me in the US, they have just recruited an EMEA data privacy lawyer to get things done for us. So again, it's long term. So that's one challenge. And I think the only other thought to have a think about really is about when you're sourcing, diverse suppliers, particularly when you've got wonderful colleagues with giant multi-million-dollar, global or partially global agreements. Is just trying to, because obviously it goes against what we do in terms of finding those smaller. I mean, there are some very large diverse businesses out there, particularly in the US, bigger than Sony. But certainly that is a challenge. Again, multi-country sourcing, that's always a challenge.
Yeah, great. And lastly, perhaps Alex, Unilever, challenges for you in terms of how you can engage and build more realistic and sustainable diverse supplier relationships.
Look, I probably have three things. I mean, Andrew, I can't agree more. I mean, it took us 5 months to get now to launch a survey. So we just launched a survey to all our suppliers to ask questions on supplier diversity, but also other social aspects such as living wage. It's been such a journey. So I will agree. This is still an ongoing challenge or watch out. I do think there is also something, and probably to the industry, we are still having difficulties to find supplier in areas such as chemical, such as packaging, also when we are changing everything we're buying for sustainability reason. So I think it's a new space for all supplier, and historically there are just probably less of diverse businesses we are aware of that exist in that space. So it's an invitation, and that's why we're also taking care of many accelerators, because we want, my dream is that we build a company in that space because they will win the business in 10 years. And last but not least, because we're all in procurement, I think it's an ongoing watch out, a challenge of balancing that and continue to balance with cost, resilience, quality, because it's a journey, and it's an ongoing journey to make sure it stay at the same level. When procurement teams sometimes are fighting, for resilience or for cost inflation mitigation and everything that could happen when you're in the fantastic procurement world.
Great, thanks, Alex. So guys, I've got a couple of questions. We've got a few minutes left. I've got a couple of questions coming in from the audience. So I'll just open this up to whoever feels like they've got a perspective on these. The first one is from Jazz Randall. It says, thank you, panel. I would be interested to know if you only include diverse suppliers that are certified, or do you also include self-certified suppliers? And if so, what kind of checks do you do on them to ensure they are actually diverse? Any thoughts from any of you on that one?
I'm quite happy to take this one. I think that's a great question. I think certainly from our approach, it is everybody is welcome. It's certified, non-certified, and we will conduct the basic checks. I know there was a trend in the US negatively that many in the construction area were having their lots of women-owned construction businesses when the builders were just putting their wives into that. But I'm pleased to say those days have long since passed now. So I think that in terms of, yes, we are open. Now, don't be surprised if you are non-certified that we persuade you to become certified, because there's loads of benefits joining organizations like MST UK. But also, yeah, we will still complete the most basic of due diligence to ensure that, you are, what you claim to be. And that would be my reply. So,
yeah.
At Fidelity, we consider certified diverse businesses only, on the basis that we are not staffed to do all those checks.
Right. Okay. Wonderful. Anything, Manuela or Alex?
Yeah, we are starting the journey as Alex in Unilever. So globally, we're only 7 months driving this agenda. We welcome all suppliers, certified and non-certified. As Andrew said, we will encourage those non-certified suppliers to be certified, because there are huge value to do that. We will at any point report this transparently, which of them are certified versus none. But for now, we definitely welcome everyone.
Okay.
And here, we look at both. We adapt that according to geography and requirement, like South Africa and North America, we will report only certified. In other countries, we do both. I just want to say that the reason why we're doing that is because in country outside of mature program, it's the only way to start really getting this company recognized and connected, because certification does not exist yet. But we are also, like all my colleagues, really knowing that it's better to be certified if you have certification body where you're based. Yes.
We had a follow-up question, and I don't know if you've got any advice on this. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. But Ashgar was asking, are there any further public information or sources of public information available in the UK or Europe that cover diversity? So I guess his question is about helping you again identify diverse suppliers, particularly in environments where there isn't that degree of positive discrimination to call it out directly, and you're reliant on the supplier declaring effectively their diverse status. Have any of you found any other sources of perhaps publicly available information? No.
No, I think, David, it's a good question, and I think that the wise will tread carefully in this area, and no doubt, you know, there's certain countries that you cannot ask, you know, sort of, you know, sex determination.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, just work with, you know, local council to make sure that any questions that you do ask are done in the right way. But I think it never hurts, again, not that I'm promoting the advocacy groups, to work with them. They will know. But, you know, and I think it's a matter of time, particularly with our wonderful friends in the LGBTQ plus community. It is particularly challenging, and it does take time to build that trust and that relationship. So, you know, that's my advice. Just, you know, be wise.
Okay, thank you.
If I can add, just
sorry,
because coming new, I think I also see, at least in big company, there's a lot of value of reaching out to procurement colleagues, because what I found is that it was many diverse businesses that maybe someone sitting in a country was aware of, but it was not widely shared. So maybe for colleagues that are listening, sometimes it's value of just asking your procurement people, because they will know their supplier, and sometimes they will know.
Yeah, thank you. Lots of activity on the chat. I won't be able to get to all of this in the minute or so we have remaining. Certainly some interest in your registry and how questions about how to get onto that. So perhaps there's some way we can share through MSD UK how to help them access you. Perhaps one last question for anyone who feels they'd like to answer. How do your teams identify diverse suppliers? Do you reach out directly to MSD UK when going through a tender, or should there be different approaches for suppliers?
Well, I think,
sorry, go on.
I was going to say, just to recap what I mentioned earlier, I know, Manuela, you probably have a similar process. So we have a supplier diversity team, which I'm part of, that will do the first check in terms of our own database. We then work globally with any of the advocacy groups to see if they've got anybody. So yes, we would reach out to Mayank and the team to ask if they have any diverse suppliers that would be interested to be included on the tender. I think it's quite a huge question, because there's so many different options. There's certain advocacy groups that you can put your tender on their website for bids to come in. So it's a very broad area, but I think the most important thing, again, that we stand by is to just get yourself involved. And you know, we want to hear about you. We want you involved in our processes to, you know, to have a go. Why not?
Brilliant. Thank you, guys. We're up on time. So all that remains for me is to say thank you very much, Alex, Florence, Manuela, Andrew. Thank you so much for your time. We'll try and capture whatever we can from the chat that we didn't get to see if we can do something offline on that. Audience, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you in one of the other sessions later today or at the events tomorrow. Thanks for joining us for this one, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.